Hi everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to walk you through the instructions on how to make my latest pattern, the tea bag hanging pocket. Y'all, I'm all about doing practical and useful projects this year, and this is so useful. This has 9 pockets you can use for random leftover tea bags. You could use it for recipe cards. You could put it on the fridge, on a shelf, on the wall, next to your desk, all kinds of things, and it's so easy to make. We're going to walk through the instructions today. And this project is Jolly Bar friendly. So do you have any Jolly Bars lying around you're not sure what to do with? Go grab one and let's get busy making this project. So today I'm going to be using this Jolly Bar. It is 5 inches wide and 10 inches tall. And I believe there's like 40 or 44 prints in this Jolly Bar. Now you don't have to have a Jolly Bar. The instructions on the first page tell you how big to cut all of your pieces. But if you have a Jolly Bar, you could make several projects from this stack of fabrics, and they're pretty much almost pre-cut for you. So you can just get busy making your project. So the first thing we're going to do is take the wrapper off of this Jolly Bar big stack of fabrics, all coordinated with one another. And I'm going to start going through each one of them. If you're interested in this Jolly Bar, here's the information for it. FatQuarterShop.com is where you could probably find it still. I'm going to start going through all of the different prints. Some of them are single prints. Some of them have 2 prints of the same fabric, but what I'm going to do is pick out 2 fabrics for the front of my hanging pocket and 2 fabrics for the back of my hanging pocket. This is going to make the base of our holder, right? So there's 2 for the front, 2 for the back. We're going to flip right sides together. Perfectly lined up, and we're going to be sewing a seam on the short side with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's bring it over to the sewing machine. What's awesome is if you're working with these pre-cuts, you're just matching up fabrics and you can just start sewing so quickly. Again, the measurements, if you are cutting from yardage or scraps, is on the first page of the pattern. So now that we have the front and back sewn together, we're going to open up these seams and give them a press. Aren't these fabrics so cute? And we'll flip them over and give them a press from the right side of the fabric. Now we're going to go cut a piece of batting that is exactly the same size as the front or the back of this project. And today I'm going to be using an Elmer's glue stick and glue basting my layers for the base together. So I added some glue to the back fabric. Here's my layer of batting. And then we're going to center the top of our base, or the front of our hanging pocket, right on top. And then we're just going to dry all of this glue with a good hot iron so that we're not bringing any wet glue over to the sewing machine. Look how fast that is. We already have the base assembled for this project. Now we're going to set this off to the side and we're going to pick out some fabrics to make up our pockets. Okay, so that we'll just set that off to the side and let it cool down. Let's bring back this Jolly Bar stack of fabrics and let's go through and pick out some fabrics for our pockets. Now I'm going to pick sort of coordinating or contrasting fabrics for my pockets. And I'm just going to go through all of these fabrics and pick them out. Now the Jolly Bar, again, is 5 inches wide and 10 inches tall. I'm going to pick out 5 of these different prints and set everything else back over to the side. We're going to stack up these prints nice and even with one another. And we're going to cut them directly in half. So what we're going to end up with is squares of fabric that are 5 inches by 5 inches. This is what we're going to make our pockets from. Now we're going to take one of these fabrics and we're going to cut that right in half. And this is going to be used for our hanger. So with our pockets, y'all know me, I like to glue baste. I'm going to glue baste or add some glue to the wrong side of the fabric and fold all of these fabrics right in half. This is going to make our pockets double-sided. So if you were to pull the pocket open and look inside, it does have a pretty finished fabric lining to our pocket. So for all 9 pockets, we're just folding in half and glue basting, and then we're going to dry this glue and give these pockets a good nice press, just making them nice and flat. And then we're going to bring over the little piece of fabric that we cut for the hanger. And for the hanger, we're going to fold it in half, and I'm going to glue baste it. Fold it in half so it's 5 inches long, right? And then fold it in half again, except that time I didn't bring that raw edge all the way to the fold. And then we're going to fold it one more time. So our hanger approximately is about 1/4 of an inch wide, right? And 5 inches long. So we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and we're just going to do a straight stitch, like a basting stitch or a stay stitch, right all the way down. And this is just going to permanently hold our hanger nice and closed, right? So there's the hanger for our project. And now we can start making the markings of where we're going to put our pockets. So here is the bottom of our hanger, right? The bottom of the pocket is towards my left hand. So measuring from the bottom up, we're going to measure up 2 inches, and with a heat erasing pen, I'm going to make a mark. Just making sure that the ruler is nice and straight right onto the base of my hanger. And every 2 inches, I'm going to make a mark. These marks are how we're going to line up the pockets as we sew them on. You're just going to measure all the way up, 8 little marks. Let's bring this over to the sewing machine with our pockets. Now for this part, it might be handy to have some binding clips close by. We're going to bring over the base of our hanger, and what you see right there I'm pointing to is actually the top of the hanger, right? We're going to be working from the top down. There's the first top line. Here's my pocket, right? There's the folded edge, and there is the raw edge. We're going to match up the raw edge to the line that we drew on the base of our hanger, and we're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you might find it helpful to increase the stitch length a little bit, just so that all of your layers feed through evenly. When you're done sewing, you're going to flip over that pocket right onto the base and use some binding clips just to hold it in place. Then you'll go to the second pocket and align the raw edge to the line on the base and sew that seam. Flip over the pocket and use a binding clips to keep it in place. And you're going to repeat this process, adding each one of your pockets all the way down. When I tell you this project is so easy, I dare say you could make several of these, especially if you're working from a Jolly Bar, right? Because most of the cutting's already done for you. The hardest part is picking out where you want to put the fabrics, right? But even if you're working from yardage and you're cutting multiple pieces at one time for this project, you could make several of these in an afternoon. Several people have asked about the little piece of fabric that I use before I start sewing and after I start sewing. Those are called leaders and enders. I do have a video here on my channel explaining some of the reasons why I use them and why they're so helpful. If you haven't seen that video and you're wondering why I use that little tab of fabric, you might want to go check that out. Can you hear my bird in the background? He hears me talking in here. So 8 pockets you're going to sew on just like this, matching up the raw edge to the line that we drew on the base, flipping over each one of the pockets as you move down towards the bottom. Here's the last pocket, pocket number 8, that we're adding this way. And I just roll up the base to fit into the throat of my machine as I'm working down towards the bottom. The last pocket, all we have to do is take the raw edge that has the little zigzags, see that? We're going to take the raw edge and just line it down to the base edge of our hanger. Okay. Now you can glue base this in place, you can use binding clips, but you see here I'm going to start at the very bottom and I'm just going to start doing a stay stitch or a basting stitch. And I'm really close to the edge of my hanger. I'm so close that when I add my binding at the end of this project, you're not going to see the stitch that I'm doing right here. So I started at the bottom and sewed along the bottom, and now I'm coming up the side of my project and just sewing each one of these pockets in place so that we can remove these binding clips and get them out of the way, so that we can add a binding and it won't be so clumsy. And then I'm going to break the thread and I'm going to sew the other side, right? That seam is real close to the edge. Again, you might want to work with a little bit of a longer stitch length just so everything feeds through nice and easy. You might also find it helpful to use a walking foot. And I'm just working my way all the way down. Once we've sewn all the pockets in place, we can flip it over to the back side and we're going to add our little hanger, right? So I have the 2 raw edges of my hanger and I'm just going to align them to the top of my base. And you can pin that in place, you can use binding clips. I'm just going to hold it with my fingers. And we're going to do a little stitch, again, right close to the edge. That's just going to hold that hanger in place. And we want this stitch hidden by the binding when we're done. So there we go. See how close that is to the edge? So here is our base all assembled with all 9 pockets, and we have the hanger attached to the back side. So see how fast this comes together? There's not a lot of sewing with this project, and so you can see how quick they could go by, right? So at this point, all you really have left to do is to add a binding. And so you're going to make a traditional quilt binding. I usually cut my strips at 2.5 inches wide and then fold them in half. I personally, on this project, I'm going to add my binding to the back side first using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to bring you through the process. Many of you know how to do a binding. Some of you have never done a quilt binding before, and you might actually think I'm going way too fast. But the good news is there are tons and tons of YouTube videos showing you at real time how to add a binding to your quilts. And I even have a couple of them. They're older videos, but you can go back and watch them. I'm not sure if you heard or not. I just closed my door. That bird can hear me talking in here, and he thinks he has to be part of the conversation. So I apologize if you could hear Poppy in the background. I'm not sure if the microphone picked that up or not. But I'm just working my way through. This project is not very big, right? It finishes at 5 inches wide and 19.5 inches tall from top to bottom. So even though I'm doing a traditional binding, which takes a minute, the whole process goes by really quickly. And I'm just here, just cutting off the extra parts where I started and where I came around the tail end. And I'm going to sew those together on a diagonal. And I don't know it yet, but I have my binding twisted. And I'm going to find that out here in just a second. Do you ever do that? You have the binding twisted and now it doesn't lay down right. So off camera I went and picked out that seam and we're going to try again. Again, there are so many YouTube tutorials by some really wonderful teachers. If you've never done a binding before, that you can go and learn how to do this. Just letting you know, I'm adding the binding to the back of my project, which typically you don't do. Usually you add the binding to the front and bring it over to the back. On a lot of my smaller projects and even some of my quilts, I have been adding my binding to the back first and then bringing it over to the front. I think the only right way of doing something is the way that works for you, right? So here we are, and I've put on my zipper foot because I can get right close to the edge of that binding. Now we're on the front side of this hanger, and I'm just doing a straight stitch all the way around. See how close I'm able to get to the edge of that binding using a zipper foot? Now I really wish I would have put some brown or tan thread in my sewing machine, and I didn't really even think about it until I was done. But see how fast we're going along? I kind of like the binding coming around to the front because it adds a little bit of a wider border, if you will, or frame to the project. Now when we get to the top, you see how I pulled that hanger out so that I can sew my binding and finish it off. That way it doesn't get caught in that seam. And we're just working our way all the way around. Guess what? It's all done. It's finished. How easy is that, right? Even if you're not using a jolly bar and you're cutting from just regular fabric, this is going to go by so quick. So one of the cool things is, even though I originally made this as a tea bag holder, because I all the time have random 1 or 2 bags left over, you know, and I only have so much space on the shelf that I hold my boxes of tea. So how great is it to have a place just to hang these onesies and twosies of tea bags, right? Isn't that super cute? But the size of this is so great with the 9 pockets that you could use this for anything. You could put some first aid supplies and hang one in your bathroom, right? Or your office. So there's Band-Aids, some no sewing Band-Aid stuff that really burns when you put it on your fingers. Nail clips and all kinds of little things like that. You could hang this in your bathroom, right? You could make these and use them for note holders, right? So maybe you want to add these in your office or by your desk or by the telephone, right? You could have little notepads of paper with phone numbers and addresses. You could add little clips, like how cute is that? You could add a little roll of washi tape. Millions of ideas of what you could do with this. I would love to hear your ideas down in the comment section below. I hope you make one. If you do, share pictures of the fabrics you use over on Creative Crew. I'll keep my eyes open for it. Lots of fun, super easy project. I hope you give this a try. And it's quilted on the back side. See that? How cute is that? super beginner friendly project. Okay, everybody, I look forward to seeing your pictures, seeing your other projects over on Creative Crew. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, everybody.